The night I was rushed to the hospital, I was too weak to walk. My stepfather James lifted me into his arms like I weighed nothing. His heartbeat was steady, his voice calm, and for a brief moment I believed everything would be okay. My mother followed close behind, eyes red and full of fear. Back then we were a family broken in places but still holding on. But somewhere between the chemo drips and sleepless nights, something twisted. It started with whispers in the dark, long glances, a hand that lingered too long. I was sick, vulnerable, desperate for comfort. And James was always there. By the time I realized how far we'd gone, we were already drowning in it. And when my mother finally saw the truth, saw what had been growing behind closed doors, it was already too late. The damage had been done. The silence had been shattered. This is not a love story. This is the story of how illness cracked us open, and how betrayal burned what was left. Hi everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe and hit on notifications. For my returning subscribers, thanks for stopping by. Let us begin now. People say that when you're fighting for your life, you see things more clearly. But I think sometimes the battle blurs the lines between love and comfort, between what's right and what feels good, between a father's care and a man's touch. When they told me I had cancer, everything in me shattered. I was 23, too young for death but not young enough to be immune to it. My mom Olivia broke down. She held my hand so tightly I could feel her bones trembling. But it was James, my stepfather, who carried me. Literally. He picked me up like I was a child again and wrapped me in his strong arms. I remember his smell, mint and cedarwood. His heartbeat was steady, like a metronome keeping time when my world had lost all rhythm. That day, James carried me to the hospital, whispering that I'd be okay. And I believed him. He stayed by my side more than Mom did. I don't blame her. She was scared and busy managing appointments, bills, and prayers. But James sat through the chemo with me, held the basin when I threw up, even shaved his head when I lost my hair. "You're beautiful no matter what," he'd say, brushing his fingers across my bald scalp. "You're stronger than you think." And I clung to those words like they were medicine too. I was weak for months. Tired. Pale. My body changed, but so did my heart. Something in me started to depend on James, not just as a protector but as something else I couldn't name yet. I looked forward to the nights he stayed behind after Mom went home to rest. He'd bring me smoothies, rub my cold feet, and talk to me like I was more than just a patient. Then came the night he kissed my forehead a little longer than usual. It was innocent, I think. Maybe not. When I finally got better. When my body began to fight back. When the scans came cleaner. When I saw strands of hair growing again. I felt lost in a different way. Because James didn't stop. He didn't stop looking at me like I was fragile, but also beautiful. He didn't stop coming into my room after Mom went to sleep. He didn't stop touching my hand longer than he should have. And worse, I didn't want him to. I remember one night, lying in bed, sweating from a nightmare. He came in, sat beside me, and tucked the blanket under my chin. I looked up at him and whispered, "Stay." He did. That was the night everything shifted. Nothing physical happened. Not yet. But we both knew the rules had been broken. A door opened. A silence formed. A look passed between us. After that I couldn't concentrate. I'd sit at the table and forget how to hold my fork. I'd watch him fix something in the garage and feel heat rush to my cheeks. I hated myself. And yet I craved it too. One day, I dropped a glass while washing dishes. It shattered into 100 pieces, much like my heart. James came running and held my trembling hands. He looked me in the eyes and said, "You're okay. You're okay, baby." He had never called me that before. Baby. That word sat in the air like smoke. I didn't speak. I just looked at him. And he didn't move away. I should have said something. I should have stopped him. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because deep inside me was a sick, selfish truth. I liked it. I liked feeling seen. Desired. Important. After so many months of feeling like a ghost, James made me feel alive. I began to dress differently, started wearing makeup again. I told myself I was recovering, celebrating life. But deep down, I knew I was doing it for him. For the way his eyes followed me. For the way his breath caught when I laughed. Then one morning, I caught Mom watching us. She was holding a cup of coffee, eyes narrowed, mouth still. I was laughing at something James had said. He was sitting too close, his hand too casual on the back of my chair. And Mom just stood there unmoving. That was the beginning of the end. The days that followed were thick with tension. Mom's voice grew sharper. James avoided her gaze. And me? I couldn't look either of them in the eyes. I told myself nothing had really happened. But it had. Even if we hadn't touched. Even if no one said the words. We had already gone too far. The silence in the house grew louder every day. Mom wasn't talking much. Not to me. Not to James. She walked around like a ghost, keeping her eyes on her phone or staring out the window for minutes at a time. Meals became quiet affairs. No laughter, no stories, just the sound of forks scraping plates and tension thick enough to choke on. James and I didn't speak much either. Not about it. But everything else? We still talked. In whispers. In glances. In the way he touched the small of my back when he passed behind me. In the way I lingered too long near him, pretending I needed help reaching something. I wish I could say I was innocent, that I didn't mean for it to go this far. But the truth is I let it happen. One afternoon Mom said she was going to visit her sister in Oregon for the weekend. She didn't ask if anyone wanted to go with her. She didn't kiss James goodbye. She just packed a small bag and left. I stood at the door watching the taillights disappear. Then I turned to face James. We didn't say a word. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept rolling over, heart pounding, skin prickling with nerves. Around midnight, I got out of bed and walked into the kitchen. I stood by the sink, staring into the dark backyard, feeling cold but not from the air. James walked in minutes later. He was wearing a white t-shirt and loose pants. His hair was messy. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside me, close enough for me to feel the warmth of his body. "You okay?" he finally asked. I nodded. Then shook my head. "I can't sleep." "Me neither," he said softly. The silence came again. But this time it wasn't heavy. It was electric. When he touched my shoulder I didn't flinch. When he turned me toward him and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, I didn't stop him. And when he leaned in and kissed me, not on the forehead, not like a father would, I kissed him back. I know it's wrong. Every part of it. But in that moment it didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like relief. Like something that had been building for months finally breaking free. He picked me up, just like he did when I was sick, and carried me to the living room. The same arms that once cradled me through pain were now wrapped around me in a way they never should have been. We didn't speak much after. Just laid there, tangled up in confusion and silence. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of a door closing. It was Mom. She had come back early. I froze. James jolted awake beside me. We scrambled to get up, to straighten things out, to erase the evidence. But it was too late. She was standing in the hallway, staring at us with eyes I will never forget. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there, still, silent, stunned. "Mom." I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. Her eyes moved from me to James. She let out a short breath, more like a laugh mixed with disbelief. "How long?" she asked. James said nothing. I stepped forward. It wasn't supposed to happen. She held up her hand. "Stop. Please. Just stop." I think that was the moment everything truly broke. She didn't throw anything. Didn't yell. She just turned around and walked into the bedroom, locking the door behind her. That night I heard her crying. Through the thin walls. Through the silence. Her pain seeped into everything. James tried to talk to her the next day, but she wouldn't let him in. She wouldn't look at him. She wouldn't look at me. I had betrayed her in the worst way possible. I kept trying to convince myself that it wasn't love, it was confusion. Gratitude twisted into desire. But the damage was done. The line we crossed couldn't be erased. A week later, James moved out. He didn't take much. Just a few clothes, his tools, and some books. He didn't say goodbye to Mom. He barely said goodbye to me. "Take care of yourself," he said, brushing my hair once more. I nodded. "You too." Then he was gone. Mom didn't speak to me for days. I left notes on her door, cooked her meals, tried to clean the house, but nothing could clean up the mess I had made. Eventually, she opened the door one morning and looked at me. Her eyes were puffy, her face pale. "I want you to move out," she said. "I need space." I didn't argue. I packed my bags and left that same day. I moved into a small apartment near the hospital. Alone. The silence followed me there too, but this time it was colder. I thought I had lost everything once when I was sick. But this? This was a different kind of dying. It's been 6 months since I walked out of my mother's house. 6 months since the silence exploded into truth and tore our family apart. I live alone now in a one-bedroom apartment. It's small, quiet, and clean. The kind of place that doesn't hold any memories, which is what I needed. A fresh start. Or maybe just a place to hide from the ashes of what I left behind. I haven't seen James since the day he left. I don't know where he went or if he ever tried to explain anything to Mom. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks about me, about us, about what we became. But mostly I try not to wonder. I try to keep my mind busy. I read. I go to therapy. I work part-time at a bookstore just to fill the hours. I'm better now, physically at least. My hair has grown back. My strength has returned. I can laugh again, sometimes even without guilt. But inside, I carry the weight of what I did. I betrayed my mother. That thought haunts me more than anything else. Even more than the memory of James. I let myself fall into something I should have run from. I crossed a line and dragged her heart with me. And for what? A man? A feeling? A moment? One evening I got a text from Mom. "You can come by. If you want." I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands were shaking. My chest tightened. I didn't know if it was an invitation or a test. But I went. I owed her that. The house hadn't changed much. The same white porch. The same wind chimes. But the warmth was gone. The curtains were drawn. And the garden looked neglected. She opened the door slowly. We stood face to face for the first time in months. She had aged. Just a little. Fine lines around her eyes, tiredness in her posture. Or maybe it was just the pain showing through. I don't know if she saw the same in me. "Hi," I said softly. "Come in," she replied, her voice hollow. I stepped into the living room. The couch was the same one James and I had once shared. I couldn't bring myself to sit there, so I stood. She went to the kitchen and returned with 2 cups of tea. We sat opposite each other like strangers, the table between us holding all the words we hadn't spoken. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness," I said after a while. "I just wanted to see you." She nodded. "You don't have to explain." But I did. I don't know why it happened. I think I was just lost. Weak. And he was there. She didn't flinch at the mention of him. She just stared into her tea, quiet. "I thought I was dying," I said, voice trembling. And when I started getting better, it was like everything was upside down. I couldn't tell what was real. I didn't want to feel invisible again. "And you don't need to protect him," she said, cutting me off gently. "He made his choice. And so did you." I looked down. "I know. And I hate myself for it." She was silent for a long moment. Then she whispered, "I hate you too." My breath caught. It was like being slapped in the heart. "But I also love you," she continued, her voice shaking. "That's the hardest part. I raised you. I held your hand through everything. I never thought you would be the one to break me." Tears fell down my cheeks. I couldn't stop them. "I miss you," I whispered. She nodded slowly. "I miss who we were." We sat in silence again. But this time it wasn't tense. It was sad. Heavy. Honest. "I don't know if things can ever go back," she said. I don't even know what normal looks like anymore. I don't either, I replied. We drank our tea in silence. I didn't stay long. Before I left, I stood in the doorway and turned to her. If you ever want me in your life again in any way, I'll be here. She gave a small nod.
No premises.
Just space. I walked away from that house with tears in my eyes and a little hope in my chest. Not hope that we'd fix everything, but hope that maybe, just maybe, time would let us rebuild something, anything, from the rubble. As for James, I don't expect to see him again. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe some fires burn too hot to come back from. All I know is that whatever he gave me during my sickness, his time, his comfort, his care, it came at too high a price. I'm healing now. Not just from the cancer, but from the choices I made in its shadow. I'm learning to sit with guilt, to own my mistakes, to breathe through shame. This isn't a story with a happy ending. It's just a story with truth in it. A story of love that went too far. And what's left after the fire? Were you able to reflect to this story? Have you thought of being in that situation and what would you have done about it? Subscribe and hit on notifications for more beautiful and emotional stories like this.